We're recording. Please go ahead.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Athena. All right. Welcome to the meeting of the Charter Review Committee. I'll go around and see who can hear us and be heard on Zoom. Meg?
So all of a sudden my sound isn't working. Wait a minute.
We can hear you.
There.
You got it? Excellent.
Sorry.
No problem. Erica? That's why we checked.
Here. I'm here.
Great. Ken?
Here.
Marcus?
Here.
Is there anyone else?
I'm here if you
Oh.
said me.
I don't see Andy and Bernie. They didn't email me that they'd be absent, but I don't see either of them. Interesting.
And
And Raphael.
And Raphael, are you here? Or no? No? Okay, so we have 3 absences. So that will mean that when Erica leaves early, the meeting will end. Because we will lack a quorum. Unless one of the 3 of them joins us. But none of them emailed me, which is
What time are you leaving,
odd.
Erica?
I have to leave it around 20 after 7. I'm sorry about that.
Okay. So let's try to get started, given the time pressure. So minutes, Meg, you haven't done those?
I haven't done them. Sorry, I've spaced it out. I'll have them for the next meeting.
No worries.
Save some time there.
Yep. Public comment. Is there anyone in the audience? Nope, there's nobody in the audience, so we're good.
Who's the minute taker tonight, William?
Minute taker tonight was scheduled to be Bernie, so he's not here. Does anybody want to take minutes? If not, next on the list is
We can send him the video and he can do minutes from the video.
perfect. Great. Awesome. That's what I'll do.
Excellent idea.
Thank you. Good idea, Athena. Outreach subcommittee, do you want to give a quick update, Erica?
Sure. We had our scheduled Zoom listening session on Tuesday night, and Raphael and I were facilitating. Ken was also present. I think we had about 12 people in addition to ourselves, give or take, and people, came and left, but we had a good conversation. Some of the same issues came up. We will have notes to share, but some of the same issues came up around transparency, public participation, the nature of the town manager versus mayor debate and question. And those were the highlights for me. There were many other comments, but those were the recurring themes that I heard. And I don't know, Ken, if you want to add to that, but I thought it was a good conversation. It was really interesting to have it virtually because we haven't tried that yet, and it made me think that given that we've had a kind of a low turnout with the challenges to it being summer and the publicity challenges, it made me think that if we wanted to take up the idea of doing additional listening sessions, we could and do it virtually, and that it would work. In other words, we got better turnout for this one than we did for the in-person so far. Doesn't mean that would always be the case, but it was nice to see that. And the other thing I wanted to mention is that we need to choose a facilitator or facilitators for the final scheduled in-person session at the Bangs. And I know we're down 3 people tonight, but if anybody would like to participate in that, it would be good to know on the 23rd. Am I right, Meg?
Yeah, yes, the 23rd. I could be there. I think we wanted at least 1 or 2 of our outreach committee to be there. I can be one.
Yeah.
I'm not sure if I can make it. I think I can, but I'll have to double check and get back to you.
I'll confirm with you, Meg, but I think it would be great to have, if anybody else is available, it helps to have a couple members of the committee also, because it helps. I think it'll help later in our conversations about public feedback when, more of us have witnessed or been part of the conversation, not just read the notes. Doesn't mean everybody has to be there, but it's great when people can come.
Would you like me to reach out to the people who haven't been at one yet? Like, I think
Um,
Bernie hasn't, and
Sure. If you want to reach out to Bernie, that'd be great. I think,
who are is there anyone else who hasn't been at any?
I wasn't at one of them, but
Well, I wasn't at one of them either, but
I should be able to get there, but I wouldn't be able to get there at the beginning, honestly. I have to take my daughter to something.
I think I've seen everybody in the two meetings that I've been at. I mean, other than,
yeah,
other than Bernie.
well, I'll reach out to him
Great.
okay.
just to attend, even just to be there.
Yeah, it would be nice if you would attend. There's been a lot of great discussion, actually. I know, Erica, the last forum you weren't there, but we heard a lot about the budget, a lot about committees. Those were sort of the highlights.
Yeah.
And I think generally there's a myriad of different issues, but I've heard pretty significant comments on so far a support for looking especially hard at section 3, section 5, and section 8. Which is the town manager, the budget, and the transparency type section.
I just
Yeah.
wanted to add, Julian, that the one comment that we did here that I thought was important to relay was some feedback that the a kind of maybe uncertainty that we're actually reaching enough of the town with our public outreach effort, and that we could do better job of reaching out to particular subsegments of the community, and in particular, like BIPOC residents of the community were mentioned,
Yeah,
and that we could reach out to leaders of various community groups to solicit feedback, invite people into the written comments channel specifically, or as I said, if we end up scheduling additional sessions later after our draft process is underway, that we could add those comments in, and it would be really valuable.
Yeah, I agree with that narrative or comment. I do remember trying to encourage the committee to move towards like meeting outside of just the bangs, like maybe meeting in some apartment complexes or meeting out in the community, but there was some reason why that could not happen, and I don't remember what it was, but there was some sort of reason that we couldn't do that. Meg, do you remember what that was?
well, first of all, we had a very ambitious outreach plan originally to reach all of the apartments, and it was virtually impossible to get contact information for people who had any email, would have give us access to email lists. And then the communications director offered to take over kind of the outreach, and I think we need to take some of that back.
And
Is our outreach, well, I have so I don't have to raise my hand again. Is our outreach committee meeting this week, Erica? Seems
We
like
are
we
now.
should.
We could,
What?
this coming week, next
Yeah.
week. Yeah.
It-
Mhm,
So it seems like we should
Yeah.
address this at that meeting.
for sure.
And it's time like to reboot and then especially this was always seen as the first listening outreach session, that we were going to do some kind of round 2. So we ought to discuss is that still the plan, and what would that look like? And is it to fine tune some of what we've heard, which would mean that this larger committee would have to go, we'll get to Ken in a minute, review the feedback, so that if we want to have a second round of listening, it would be more focused on specific things, and maybe even people would know ahead of time which sessions we're going to address which things, and people would be drawn to those.
yeah, thank you, Meg. And I do remember explicitly saying in like October or November timeframe that, and I'll say it again, see if the committee's more receptive to it this time, about possibly going out and like having a cookout or a community meeting in the Boulders, in Village Park, in Rolling Green, etc. You know, we don't need to bring much. Put up some flyers beforehand, and I've done it before, and you know, I've gotten like 25, 30 people at those sort of events. For other organizations.
Talking about town government,
Yeah, yep.
30 people at Boulders, that's pretty amazing. That's great.
Yeah, we did a shade
Free
tree
food.
planting over there, and we had a fair amount of people show up, and we did and I did a sunrise cookout at Village Park, that also got like 25 or 30 people. And I mean, you know, we're not planting trees, we're not an activist organization, but you know, it's in the same realm, if you will, so it's not impossible. And I would hope that the committee would look into it again.
One last thing on the update, but just to respond, I wouldn't rule anything out for what we could do for additional public feedback, but I am aware that we hit a challenge of not having a budget to host events, which is why we ended up with 3 events at the Bangs, as opposed to some of the other places that we were setting up to do, including the Survival Center, which I think would have brought a really interesting audience.
Yeah,
And we kind of hit a wall with that sort of thing, given the costs involved and other things that we were that sort of slowed down the process of securing those spaces.
right, because we
But
did
that-
have the bank center secured. We just had to cancel it. I
The
mean, the Survival Center. Sorry to
Anyway,
interrupt
just the
you,
last
Erica.
thing,
Sorry
the
about
last
that.
thing on the outreach update that I wanted to let everybody know, the town official and staff survey remains open. We heard that there were several former officials that had not received the survey. I emailed you all. We collected additional names and got those out. So everybody who was a former counselor should have the survey. And I will be following up with the communications office to get a full list so that we're clear on who actually were the recipients. So we make sure we covered everybody we wanted to cover for that.
Great.
Ken?
Erica, were you able to round out that whole list of people that you
I
were
think
trying?
I think I got everybody who had been missed by in the handoff to the communications office. So everybody that I think that we had intended from, I think Bernie's original list should now have received it, but I'll be
Excellent.
following up and make sure we miss any, close any gaps.
Thanks for sorting that out, and thank you to former Counselor Dumont for raising that to our attention. I'll just say one more comment is like, as long as the weather's nice, I don't think there's really anything stopping us from doing something at Groff Park or at Mill River Pavilions, or they have like a little sheltered area at Village Park that's completely free to use, maintained by the town. They have grills. Basically, you'd really only need to buy maybe $30, $45 worth of drinks and cider donuts, which I'm happy to pick up at Atkins. So it's not impossible. Meg?
I just want to point out that we've never, sorry.
Ken, go ahead. You still have your hand up?
Oh, sorry, for me?
Yeah.
Oh,
You
sorry.
had your hand up first. Yeah.
Yeah,
Raise my
I
hand.
sorry, before we move off the outreach committee, I wanted to just just put my 2 cents in, which really is more of just an echo of what Erica said about the Zoom call. Many interesting topics that were brought up, some repeats, many repeats. I thought it was well organized. I mean, well organized in the sense that people were very respectful, took their turns. If we can get another, I mean, I would be totally supportive of another Zoom call like that. And the idea that it might get higher attendance. And then one other thing about, and this sort of crosses between outreach and feedback, and quite frankly, I don't have a feedback committee update. Andy is not here. We did not have a subcommittee meeting since the last charter full committee meeting, because we had these 2 public input sessions that we wanted to let happen first, because we had kind of nothing to talk about. So we need to put another subcommittee meeting on the agenda. I'll talk with Bernie and Andy about that. But I just wanted to say a real quick point that, and I caught myself doing this at the meeting at Bangs. certain times when people were giving comments, I was like physically like showing signs that I agreed with them, like sort of nodding my head, which could also be considered like I understand or okay, I understand. I'm getting your feedback. But it's not sort of an explicit thing that I think we talked about. But in these public input sessions, as opposed to these meetings where we do absolutely express our opinions and we should, I want to be really careful that we don't lead people or kind of guide them in any sort of way, whether that be verbally or non-verbally. And I know, and we're talking about more meetings. I was just prepared to say, hey, we got one more meeting at Bangs, but if we've got other ones, I just don't want to, I would love to stay objective in those contexts across all of the committee members. And it's just, it's a tiny thing, but I'm like, ooh, I should not have been nodding my head because it looks like I totally agree with what they're saying. Maybe I do, maybe I do, maybe I don't, but I don't want to drop that mask of objectivity. So just wanted to put that out there.
It's a really good point, Ken. I'll personally just admit at one of the ones I attended, I went off on a tangent and should have stayed more objective. And I also remember that Meg and Andy spoke a little bit, so I could do a better job myself of setting that example, and I think we all could do a better job of it. Meg?
I just want to point out that we still don't have a budget. It costs $40 an hour to rent the Mill River Pavilion. I'm very surprised that it doesn't cost anything to rent the one at Groff Park. But we can't, especially if we have food, we need to have some kind of a budget. And I think there are a number of other things that not having any money at all holds us back. We're going to continue to want to have public meetings after, the second round of listening, bringing our recommendations out for comment, whatever. I think we're going to continue to, not a huge budget, but, like $2,000 or something.
I think I missed a meeting where that was sort of closed, that conversation was closed. Is it closed permanently or was it closed because of the fiscal year?
It was on an agenda but we didn't get to it 2 meetings ago, I think.
The possibility of requesting funds.
That's what I recall, but do you remember, Julian?
I don't. I apologize. We discussed this and then it sort of faded into
Yeah,
the
but-
distance. It may be
It-
worth another conversation. I would just say those pavilion rentals, I looked it up. It's only like people who reserve it have the right to use it first. But if there's no other reservations, you can still use it as long as you're not conflicting with a reserving party. And then you don't even need to pay that little fee.
But I would hate to show up, advertise that we're having a listening session at a pavilion and find out there's a wedding reception going on or a birthday party.
No, you can call them and ask and be like, is there something happening? And if
but-
there's not, then
But the thing is, we have to advertise ahead of time, right? I don't know. I guess we could just wing it and say we're going to have it spontaneously and not, like someone could reserve it 5 days ahead. So it's all right. I just think we should be able to pay. If it's a committee like this ought to be able to pay the costs of the spaces we use if the town should give them to us for free. But if we can't book,
that's what I'm saying. Like, I don't think anybody's reached out to the town for if they would give them for us for free. I'm happy to make that call tomorrow morning.
great.
I don't think we have even asked the recreation department or
The town manager.
yeah, if we could use that. They very well may let us use that space for free, just like the Bangs. And I feel like it's certainly worth a conversation given that it's much closer to some of the apartment complexes where residents actually live, not the student apartment complexes. Anyway, that concludes any other comments on outreach or feedback subcommittee update? No?
Yeah, did we get an action item out of that though? Julian, did you say you were going to email that or contact the town manager to ensure we get free bookings at places in town?
I would pause on that because, not because of the idea, but because we would need to have some dates in mind, and we haven't finished our first round of the 4 scheduled sessions. So now that we're kind of coming to the end of those 4 sessions, I think the outreach subcommittee can take up figuring out another round and certainly pursue the ideas that have been shared.
And I'm happy not to book a date, but just to ask.
That's what I'm after. Yeah, just is
Yeah,
it
I am
particularly
more than happy to call the recreation department and ask, can we as a town committee use this space for free under one of the pavilions in one of our town-owned parks? And I can ask that, and I don't know what the answer will be, but I'll get back to the committee. If I had a guess, the answer will be yes. It shouldn't be a reason that we can't do that. Anyway, Collins Center update. The Collins Center is not at our meeting. We're saving the amount of meetings that they have. So we're moving on and basically trying to do a few articles, looking into it, asking questions without them. So that's what we'll be doing next, with Articles 6 and 7. And then we'll have we mostly recapped our listening sessions, but I wanted to bring up an article that I believe I emailed you all about that is definitely worth our attention, the feedback subcommittee's attention, just because it contains a lot of very in-depth feedback from a fair amount of people, fair amount of very involved people, but a fair amount of people. And I think that's worth our attention.
Has it been submitted to the town?
I don't believe so. I'm not sure if they don't know how to do that or why it wasn't submitted to the town. But it may even be worth reaching out to them directly and saying, please submit this.
I think
Mhm.
I think that's a great idea.
Yeah, because
Use
Yeah.
an official, I mean, just copy and paste it into our formal thing. So we
Right,
have,
exactly. It would take no more than one person 5 minutes, and I'm sure, yeah, that would be doable.
Yep.
Given that they wrote that article. Alrighty. So now with nothing else besides our little Scrabble stuff at the end and Article 6 and 7, I will start screen sharing. This is a document that the Collins Center provided me that is annotated with Articles 6 and 7 and some discussion points. I'll let the committee have its discussion, and I'll sort of act not as the Collins Center, but as sort of help guide the conversation, facilitate the conversation. And if I have something to add, I'll add it at the end, to sort of allow members to talk and ask questions. And I'll answer questions as best I can. And if I don't have an answer, I'll forward that to Collins. If that's all right with everybody. Can you all see that? Okay.
yes.
Excellent. Thank you. So Article 6.1, and please let me know if I'm scrolling too fast.
Julian,
Yep.
the part
Go
we
right ahead.
haven't seen before is the red part. So if we could.
Yep.
That's new, right?
Yep.
Okay.
This is what the Collins Center has written for us.
Those are good questions they ask.
Yeah. I guess let's go section by section and just discuss section by section. Does anyone have any comments, questions on this section? No?
I don't have any background as far as the discussion, the discussion questions. Whether this has actually happened from the town manager.
Town manager has never submitted a plan to reorganize the department. The closest that has happened is Cress, but he certainly has not done anything to explicitly reorganize or shut down or replace a department.
Yeah, I was gonna say the crest is more the formation, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So this isn't there yet. I mean, I guess for us, the question is this gonna be complete enough as described, right? Because we don't know. Yeah, it's more of a we think maybe situation.
So,
Yep, Meg?
it says that he may do it, but there's no obligation. Perhaps what's needed is some kind of process for the public or a member of some town agency for suggesting that he might want to prepare and submit to the town a reorganization plan. In other words, it
Yeah.
looks like it's totally up to the town manager to decide whether or not, I don't think anyone can force him to do it, but does it lack a process for proposing that there's a need for a reorganization of some town agency?
I almost feel like it might be appropriate that the council could ask him to do that. Like there's nowhere in here that like the town council can approve or disapprove, but I feel like it might be appropriate for the town council to ask him and say, hey, listen, we would like you to look into reorganizing X department to more efficiently or effectively meet the
Mhm.
needs of the town, and so on and so forth. It could also be used as like a referendum on saying, why does X department not get the funding it needs to say like, hey, this department could use to have a lot more staff, a lot more support,
Mhm. Yeah,
and sort of use that argument. I know we've seen what's happened with the DPW being one of the lowest funded in the entire state. Like the town council should be able to say, hey, maybe you should reorganize to have more staff people in DPW and less staff people in somewhere else in the town budget.
But that's not, yeah. I mean, on the budget
That's
side,
sort of reorganizing the departments just because, like, if you're number one funded in X place, and you're zero funded in the other, it might make sense to reorganize so one place has less staff and maybe you create a new division in DPW even.
yeah, I just think that the council way of doing that would be to change the budget to
uh-huh.
force the issue, right? Rather than saying you reorganize and then come and tell me, we're saying, here's the money, it's going to fit this way, you go and do it. You know, the reorganization is an outcome of the budget change
Right.
in that situation. So rather than having them go to him to say, hey, I'm going to you've got to reorganize, you force the issue through the budget. He then says, I need to reorganize. But I do think in A, the may prepare and submit is a little wishy-washy.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it needs to be a stronger statement, a sort of a should statement, you know, because I don't know that there's necessarily a must necessary. That's probably something for Collins and the lawyers, but something to strongly suggest that that's the case would be good.
There's, Julian,
Yep. Go ahead,
there's
Meg.
another element that's kind of missing, which is the reverse. If the town manager has reorganized something or changed it from what the charter said, is there some process for asking him to reflect on going back to what was, so the example that comes to mind is the community participation officer.
Yeah.
So the town manager decided, which is maybe a fine decision, that it would be divided among three people, but then two of them left, so now it's one small part of one person's otherwise already enormous job, so that
Right.
position doesn't really exist anymore.
Yep.
And that's was one of the, having been the primary advocate of that on the Charter Commission, that was one of our efforts to have somebody who was just thinking energetically about participation, and particularly if we had had participatory budgeting, but even without that, that was a whole component of the participation strategy behind the charter itself. Again, having fought that
Yeah.
battle and won it.
I mean, I guess, Meg, that comes down to what do we define as agencies, right?
Yeah,
Does the participation officer yeah, I mean, that's kind of it's interesting. Because if this, I mean, maybe is there another section we can do that, or do we expand the definition of agencies?
yeah. Well, we should maybe wait till section where this comes in.
Right.
Where is that? That particular issue, actually. That's not a good example. You're right, because it's at the community participation officer is in here somewhere
No,
else.
but I mean, I'm not saying it's a bad example. I'm just wondering how we could make it cover that necessarily
Right.
without getting into, because I mean, if you start saying, well, you've got to deal with that particular thing, we said it was a person, and then we write it in this charter, are we then requiring every single HR decision the town manager makes has
Mhm.
this whole rubric to it?
Ah,
There's like there's a balance. I guess that's why this is talking about agencies. That's a group of people, an office within the town. So that's more kind of, yeah, we're going to reorganize. That's more of that sort of thing. But getting into the single person, I mean, the question then is, do we, rather than saying it's an outreach officer, is it an outreach agency? Can we redefine
mhm.
that to be an agency? And then that automatically fills into this, right? But it also then works more towards, because I mean, in essence, that's what the town manager created by splitting it out to various people, was an agency. And then you now, like, two people have left for what, attrition or whatever. And so any activity around that has to be a reorganization of an agency. So yeah,
Mhm.
maybe the solution is to reconfigure that part of the charter to be more of an agency rather than a single point of contact.
Yeah,
Yeah, interesting. Other comments, questions about this section till I move on? No? Okay. Principles in appointing and promotions.
Mhm.
She actually, I read some of it, she was debarred in Florida.
Yeah, this seems pretty reasonable.
That's the scary thing, isn't it? Judiciaries now, some.
By and large,
Mhm.
especially when you consider that state law is probably pretty prescriptive and the collective bargaining agreements allow for like grievances and stuff. So seems appropriate to me.
Sorry, the one, when we're in A, that's fine. Yeah, sorry.
This is something that I'd like to discuss, but I'll let other people speak first.
Yeah, Julian, that was where I was going to. It's very, do we have a definition of the town bulletin board?
I believe that's the big screen in front of town hall, the literal physical bulletin board. That
Mhm.
is
There's
listed
a
on-
there's a section of the website called the bulletin board where we
Yeah.
list stuff that's required by the church.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thanks, Athena.
So is Alito. I know. So like 6 of the people on the Supreme Court are Catholics.
Meg, it sounds like someone's speaking in your background.
Oh, sorry, I'll mute. They're 2 rooms away, amazing.
No, I just didn't want
Yeah,
their
thank you.
conversations to be recorded by accident. um, yeah, this section requires public posting of vacancies for 14 days. I mean, in my mind, that just isn't practical. Like, nobody is, like, if someone applies for a job and doesn't hear back in 14 days, for certain positions in town, that might make it harder for us to hire, especially
Mhm.
if they're looking for a different position. Like, say someone applied to be a firefighter in Amherst, Northampton, and Belchertown, and Belchertown and Northampton got back to them 4 days later with an interview, and we didn't get back to them for 14 days. By the time we're scheduling an interview with them, they could already be hired in a different municipality.
Right. And I think the key point to this, though, Julian, for like addressing that, is what it says on the sort of the end of that second line.
Yeah.
And it's whether it's subject to the collective bargaining, right? So I do agree. I think 14 days is overly prescriptive, but I mean, it would be good just to remove it, right? Say for not less than the required amount of time, and leave it. But I'm very curious if there is any, if the collective bargaining has kind of gone into this number, because this number is, very, why not 13? Why not, 15 sort of thing? But like I'm wondering if there's, something in the background on that date, so that yes, sure, we can change it, but is it actually going to change elsewhere? So
I'm not completely sure. I have
right.
done a sort of surface read over, more just out of curiosity, of our town's collective bargaining agreements for the SEIU, the DPW, the fire, the police, etc. I feel like those are all the town
Mhm.
unions. And in reading through those, I didn't see anything
Well, that's
about
good.
14 days, but that there could be something that's not documented, or I could have just missed it, given that that's basically the equivalent of reading a 500-page book.
Yeah, I would certainly forgive you if you missed it on that one. No, I think it's something that we can certainly address, right? Bring to that, or at least bring to someone's attention, saying that this is just kind of silly. To your exact points, right? We're slow in comparison. Maybe we see what the minimum time that the surrounding towns are, so that if we do go low, we can, hit those guys at the same time, go a day later, the day lower than them or something.
Right.
But yeah, I don't know. Yeah, talk to the town HR department. Maybe they would be the ones that would be best equipped to kind of discuss the 14 days part.
Yeah, I almost feel like it could be like a reasonable period,
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
tracked
Hmm.
qualified applicants or whatever.
Hmm.
Erica and then Ken.
I just noticed Athena's hand up and maybe
All right, go ahead, Athena.
relevant.
Yeah.
Thank you. I spoke with the HR director about this at the very early stages of this committee's process, and the application of this provision in the charter is a little bit, I wouldn't say unclear. It's a little frustrating because this requirement was not, it wasn't part of any rule or policy in the past, and it's prevented the town from posting any jobs internally before they're posted externally, which is, you might think of that as a good thing or a bad thing. And it has prevented us from, in my recollection of her opinion that she shared with me, it's prevented us from acting more nimbly on some vacancies in hiring. Thank you.
Thank you, Athena. That's really good for us to consider, sort of along the lines of what I was worried about this doing. So I appreciate that. Ken?
My interpretation of the Collins comment was that the charter is not the place to discuss this. That it is fluid enough. I don't know how often the collective bargaining agreements are renegotiated at the town. But that the charter really doesn't have any business saying any date or prescribe any sort of time period necessarily. It's kind of it's between the town and it's and the unions representing the employees. So that was just my interpretation.
Erica, did you still have a comment? Sorry.
I just wanted to acknowledge what Athena said, and also that it's important, I think, when we read a provision like this, to keep in mind, to think about like why it's there in the first place. What is it there to sort of regulate against, if anything? And it may be that it's trying to prevent a bypassing of sufficient public notice of open positions to prevent kind of inside hiring that is not necessarily conducive to the best person for the role. That doesn't mean that the best person doesn't exist internally, but that I'm trying to think of why would you create a kind of intentional delay, so to speak, of 14 days if the idea is public posting. That certainly doesn't prevent a hiring review from beginning within those 14 days. That part of it is not clear to me. In other words, you don't have to not receive resumes for any open position within those 14 days. But again, would not want to tie anyone's hands from hiring to fill a position if it's available. But I'm thinking about why this was put in the first place. What is it? What problem was it trying to solve if it was put in there in the first place?
Or excuse me, Marcus.
Yeah, I think just to Erica's point, and to me, it was put in, to stop some supremely nimble hiring processes, right? Where you put the bid out after you've already hired the person. So, and it kind of gets to yours, Julian, of like at least something that indicates there has to be a time, but not an exorbitant amount of time, and also not half an hour, right? That's sort of reasonable. But I'm curious what other charters have, or even if they do have, because there was a reason for it to be in, just like you were saying, Erica. But this has gone to the extreme where it's hurting. So, yeah.
So that's why I'm not sure if it's the amount of time or the entity that gets to regulate what that time is, meaning collective bargaining. That's what I was trying to decipher. Who gets to stay over that?
I almost feel like it might be appropriate to take it out and say reasonable amount of time and allow or encourage the collective bargaining units to figure out what they feel like works best in their department.
And also the HR department too, right? To Erica's point, doesn't always have to be driven by the collective bargaining, because that would vary by whomever their membership is.
Mhm.
There may need to be, I think it's a best practice case, kind of getting to what the Collins is talking about. The town has a best practice. It just needs to be laid out somewhere other than in the charter, so it can be more, it can be massaged when necessary, as before the next 10 years. So if that's needed, yeah.
I agree with that.
Me too.
Should we go to the next section?
Yeah, I think so.
Let's-
Yeah, sorry, I was having a bit of trouble with my Zoom there. Let me see. Here we go. Board of License Commissioners. Any comments for this one?
The Collins Center comment is interesting.
Yeah, that's what I was just thinking too.
I don't know when the Collins Center provided their comments, the red language.
About a week ago.
But would be interesting to have that available ahead of time, so we could have read just to. Some of these are thoughtful.
It was put in the packet.
Oh, it was. Oh, I didn't see it.
When Athena posted it in the packet, but
Oh,
been
okay,
there for
sorry.
a day or two.
Good.
Yep.
I didn't
No problem.
see it.
So can we move on to Article 7? How do folks feel about that, or do we want to have some recapping?
Just sorry, can we just I just need to recap on that last sentence of the red on the last bit.
Yep.
In 6.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Typical duties. Yeah, that's fine. But yeah, I'm still trying to understand the much public or staff input into this provision. Provision of what? Provision of the committee, the commissioners themselves, or their job? But their job is, like they were saying, pretty typical. So
I believe it's provision of the charter, but I could be wrong.
okay, yeah, let's keep going.
Any other comments? No? Okay. Elections.
Could you do you know, does anybody know if H4189 will ever see the light of day?
Oh. That's a good question.
Because I mean I know it's a pending bill, but there's pending and then there's so I don't know.
This Amherst has recommended this for decades. Town meeting
Right.
did it every year. Other towns have as well. So it's a good question.
I mean,
I think we just lost Julian.
We did.
Oh dear.
oh,
So
that,
we don't have a we don't have a
Erica, you can
quorum?
share it.
yeah,
Oh,
we
no.
cannot discuss.
Yeah. so
Anything.
Why don't we
Oh,
just
rather-
pause and see if he can reconnect?
Mhm.
Sorry, folks.
No, you're good. Thank you.
Good catch, Athena.
Do you pause recording in this situation? Or
No,
you could,
Not usually, we can just wait.
okay.
We just need some holding music.
Da, 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 da. We could have a sing-along. Is it business to say that? Never, probably is. Notes Ken wrote, and I did some edits of the listening session on July 9th, was it? No, not the 9th, that's yesterday. The one, June 30th.
Yeah, I put some stuff into.
And you did too. Oh, good.
Yeah.
I love this Google thing, Google Docs that you can all add. I'll text him. Wonder what happened. Come on, Julian, let's see here. Oh, there he is.
Hi, everyone. Sorry, my computer crashed. I'll pull it back up, and we'll get back to it as quickly as I can.
Now I can discuss that HR. Yeah, it's not going anywhere.
Yeah.
It's the ranked choice voting bill just gets sent to committee and then dies a death. Yeah.
Yeah, I heard about that. That's unfortunate, but we can't control the state legislature.
No.
I think they're stupid. Meg, go right ahead.
was gonna move on to when the elections are.
Yeah.
So I know we're not yet at the point of saying what we personally think, so I'll
Mhm.
just report that a number of people think that needs to be changed. And as the reason, having been on the Charter Commission, it was not the even years elections is because there was a concern that students would come out to vote for congressional seats and the president and would vote in local things and not know what they were doing. The counter opinion is that more people show up who are not students for presidential elections and congressional elections. And it would save money, a lot of money, because we wouldn't have to be creating an election when nothing else is happening. So I just report that that's a suggestion that's been made numerous times and energetically.
Yeah, I completely agree. I personally am in favor of holding it at the
So I didn't say what I think. I just reported what we've heard.
Yeah,
Anyway.
I think we should say what we think. We're here to discuss and
Oh.
deliberate. I would encourage you to say what you think, Meg.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Anyway, I'm just making that comment.
Okay. Yeah.
I
Please.
was opposed to this at the time, but I think it's very interesting. Someone could write an interesting article about the love-hate relationship people
You
in
were
town have
opposed-
to
you were-
students.
You were opposed to how it's written, or you were opposed?
No, I
to-
thought we should have elections on even years.
I would tend to agree with you. I think we should have elections when congressional and presidential elections are, and we're going to be bringing out first. We're going to be saving a bunch of money. We're
But
also
we can't, it's hard to change now, as they
Right.
point out.
We're also going to be bringing a lot of folks from town who otherwise are genuinely town residents and just are not interested in voting until they get there, and then might vote for president and be like, oh, let me flip over the ballot and see what's on the other side here.
Well, it's
And
it's a separate ballot, actually.
oh, really? Oh, huh.
Mm.
Okay. Then even better. Like, basically, let me put it this way. I think it would open the door to allow people to get involved in local politics who do live here and aren't currently interested. It would serve almost as an invitation when they come to the ballot box, which I think is a great way to bolster our local democracy. And students who don't know anything can just not take one. And if a few students slip through and do take one who don't know anything, I don't feel like that will outweigh the gain that we get by getting more of our permanent residents involved. Other comments, questions about this?
So really the outcome is an even year switch would need another charter commission.
Or something, or an active special
special
act.
act,
So
yeah.
it's unlikely to happen,
Yeah.
but
We
But-
could propose another charter commission.
No, absolutely. No, but remember, we're getting into the sort of the what can we do, what can't we
Yeah.
do, not what can't we do, what can't we do, and what could we do with extra stuff being the act or the commission, yeah.
Mhm.
Because I'm curious by the whole point of us going to the fore was because we're a city, right? But then if we move it to 3 years, they want us to be in the spring. So, there's also, we've received comments that, the 2-year terms are too short.
Mhm.
And so there's there's a perceived need to extend them. And what does that look like? It seems like it would potentially, it's kind of interesting to me that 3 years requires the spring, but 2 years is fine in the fall. It's state law stuff, I guess, but just something to kind of for us to think
Yeah.
about more. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Thank you. I agree. I think this needs a lot more reconsideration. Other comments on this section before I move on to 7.2, 7.3? No. So here's 7.2, standard provision. anything about that? Would anybody like to see 9 out of 10 counselors register as Democrats?
No, yeah, I think it's totally fine. I think it's good.
Yeah.
Um, Erica?
On 7.3, I wanted to ask, Ken and Marcus, I think you're both in the feedback.
Mm-hmm.
And has there been any comments received around the question of signature requirements or sort of barriers to candidacy like that?
Yes, yes. Well, at least the most recent ones I'm aware of is outside of the article that we've been shown that we're still, that we need to get input into our system. The session at the end of June, we had some input about that, just the concern about the number of people required, what it takes to be a valid entry into that petition, and the time frame. So, kind of all aspects of it. So
Was it about, I mean, was it specific? I mean, just to be clear, was it specific for council and for being candidates on the ballot, or was it more about, not sure if this is the right word, but like a referendum, like getting a referendum on the ballot? I would say that it was specific about the referendum and not necessarily.
true. Yeah, I kind of thought of them as one and the same, but
Okay.
yeah, I mean, if you're going to have the same requirements on one, why not on the other? But yeah.
In this particular section of the charter, though, it's specifically about getting a candidate.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, the number of people can be different. That's fine. I just think it's like, what it takes to be an actual signature, I think should potentially be the same. So.
Yeah, thank you. Other questions in this? No?
Mm-mm.
Okay. 7.4. I have a personal opinion here, but I want to let other people share their thoughts first.
You don't like the hyphen? Or you do?
No?
There were no, I've not heard any concerns about the process.
No.
I have one opinion, which is it says shall consist of a nearly equal number of inhabitants. I almost wonder if that should be changed to voters rather than inhabitants, registered voters. And the reason I say that is because District 5, which I personally, I live and vote in District 5. So I say this as a member of District 5. Votes at a much higher rate than the entire rest of town and pretty much controls the town elections. And District 5 also is primarily a much wealthier, whiter section of town. I feel like it might be worth it to look into having an equal number of voters so that disproportionate impact is spread out and each vote has the same amount of power, if that makes any sense. Meg?
The argument against that is that the town government seeks to address the well-being of everyone who lives here. It's also a question of where more students live. I appreciate that the last redistricting, they made an extremely energetic issue to redesign the districts so that more of the districts reflected large student populations, I think including District 5, right? But the argument for reflecting voters, not voters, but residents, is that the government should benefit everyone, even people who don't vote
Right.
or can't vote because we don't have, the legislature isn't passing that bill.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, I see the argument there. I just think this section, maybe even if that's not the right solution, that this section does have some area where, like, we could change or prescribe a manner in which to sort of equalize the voting districts. Because I see what you're saying, Meg. I think you're right that sort of that also has a risk on that end, but we currently have a problem that needs addressing as well. So I think the committee should definitely look into this. Erica?
I also think that the representative government is to represent residents. And I would worry about changing language to voters. But if I take the point about that, what is this provision do to support the accurate and good representation of divisions of districts? It seems to be saying that the district advisory board is appointed upon receipt of the census and responds specifically to the census. And I wonder if there's good thinking and recommendations to be made, that there is more to think about than just at the point of that federal census moment, that there may be more local issues about the distributions of residents in our town. To your point, Julian, that could be better addressed with a more longer standing district advisory board and a possible process for rethinking that more frequently than once every 10 years.
Mhm.
Yeah, I agree. I think that's a really excellent suggestion, Erica. That might be a more sort of nuanced way of looking at it that might be worth us as a committee sort of looking into, asking the district advisory board to consider more than just the federal census and consider sort of who votes, where they vote, why they vote, etc. So yeah, thank you. Other questions, comments on this? No? Okay. Application of general laws. That seems reasonable to me. We can't change state law regardless of what we think of it.
One thing on this,
Yep.
I mean, it's working fairly well, is that, there's Amherst Media is an outlet.
Mhm.
It's not called out here. I don't know necessarily that it needs to be, but this specifically focuses on the town bulletin board.
Mhm.
And is there there are many different ways to publish candidate statements. Why are we specifically saying just this one spot? I mean,
Mhm.
is it more of at a minimum to the bulletin board or something like that?
I don't know. I feel like it sort of is an appropriate, like, here's the base level of
Right.
publicity
Yeah.
that as a candidate, and you can do more if you're interested.
That's what I say. Like, this only calls out this one thing, but I think we would want to encourage a wider spread, like you say, like a base, right? It's just the wording just says, just do this. So the wording could encourage a wider publication.
Yeah. I mean, I think most candidates I've seen, at least most successful candidates, have had their candidacy statements put up on flyers and pamphlets and social media. So, yeah. All right, that's actually the end. That is all. Other broad ranging questions on 7.6? No? Okay. I will stop screen sharing then. Felt like that went pretty well. And given that Erica has to leave in 8 minutes and we've already discussed.
Looks like she did leave.
Yeah, she did leave.
Uh-oh, okay, then we are adjourned, folks.
Yeah,
Have a nice
see you guys.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye, everybody. That was short.
Yep, that was quick. I wish you was.
Wow.